This is the 4070 Ti, one of the most controversial graphics cards that NVIDIA has ever released. It was originally slated to be named the 4080, but after intense community backlash, NVIDIA backtracked on their decision. They had to go as far as remanufacturing the coolers, because they had already made ones with the 4080 printed onto them. But with all this backlash, does that mean it's a bad card? Looking at its performance, the 4070 Ti often outclasses the last generation 3080 or even the 3090. If you're planning to build or buy a new computer, the question becomes, is the 4070 Ti worth it? Today, we're going to answer that, and we're going to be doing so by building the ultimate 1440p gaming PC. Every computer build starts off with a goal, and the goal of this computer is to deliver amazing gaming performance without breaking the bank. And that's why we're going with the AMD Ryzen 5 7600X. With 6 cores and 12 threads of high-performance Zen 4 architecture, the 7600X provides incredible performance for gaming, while still being a fierce price competitor for light professional use. Pair that with high-speed RAM, and now you got a killer package. Here, we're going with a 32GB kit of DDR5 from Silicon Power, running at 6,000 megatransfers per second. 32 gigs, you say. In a gaming build? Believe it or not, a 32GB kit is cheaper than most 16GB DDR5 kits at the moment, so why not take the free upgrade? For the CPU cooler, we're going with the Thermalright Peerless Assassin. This is hands down one of the best air coolers on the market, beating legends like the Noctua NHD15 and competing with 240 and 280mm AIOs. They also borrowed Noctua's amazing mounting methods, making it a breeze to install. To connect everything, we have the Gigabyte B650 Aorus Elite AX motherboard. This motherboard has everything that you need without including the things you don't, saving you money in the process. The B650 chipset as well is more than enough for your average user. This board has a decent BIOS, it has good VRMs, and it has a great I/O, including 2.5GB LAN, Wi-Fi 6E, and 3 M.2 slots. Speaking of the M.2s, for storage, we're going with a 1TB Samsung 980 Pro. This PCIe 4 SSD absolutely rips, providing excellent boot times, quick file transfers, and fast downloads. The build quality and longevity are top-notch with this Pro Series SSD, as long as you make sure to upgrade the firmware. And next is the star of the show, the GALAX 4070 Ti. I chose this GALAX model for 2 reasons. First, it looks killer. And second, GALAX may not be as mainstream as other brands like Asus and EVGA, rest in peace, but they have a long-standing history of delivering high-performance cards. And since all aftermarket GPUs use the exact same die from NVIDIA, the performance will be nearly identical to any other vendor. To power it all, we have the Corsair CX750M. This is a tried and true PSU from a reputable brand. It'll provide more than enough power for a system like this, while still leaving headroom for future upgrades. And lastly, for the case, we're going with the Lian Lancool 216 in white. This is a mid-size ATX tower that looks great and is built even better. For years now, Lian has been building top-of-the-line cases. Excellent build quality, excellent layout, excellent performance, you name it, they've probably thought of it. And all that comes together in the Lancool 216. And for just about $100, it's a great case for pretty much any price range of a build. Included with the case are 2 160mm RGB fans, as well as a rear fan sitting in the back. And all 3 of those we're going to be using today. And with all that done, let's build a computer. First up, we're going to be installing the CPU and the RAM into the motherboard. With the new AM5 platform, AMD went with an LGA socket similar to what Intel has been doing for years. This allows for greater pin density, and with AMD promising new CPUs until at least 2025, they'll need them. For RAM, we're going to be installing the 2-stick kit we have into slots 2 and 4. Most consumer CPUs have dual-channel memory support, so in order to maximize the available bandwidth, it's important to install them in the right slots. With those in, we can install the hardware for the cooler. Thanks to the ingenious idea of copying Noctua's design, we can install the hardware now and come back later to install the cooler. This means that we don't have to squeeze our hands past a beefy cooler in order to plug the fans in anymore. For the SSD, M.2 slots make it a breeze to install. We're going to be using the top slot here, leaving the other two open for storage additions down the line. I know that we only went with a single 1TB drive here, but with how cheap SSDs have become recently, you can easily use a 2TB drive or even multiple 2TB SSDs for an incredibly cheap price. And now with the motherboard prepped, we can install it into the case. And before we drop it in, we're going to make sure that all the standoffs are aligned with the motherboard holes. Then just line it up and screw it in. Next up, let's plug in all the front I/O and case connectors. I do this now because these wires typically have a pretty predictable path, and you're a lot more likely to change the routing of the power supply cables than you are of the case connectors. We're going to be doing the same thing for the fans, since I'm going to be using the stock fans in the stock configuration. The way that it's pre-configured will have plenty of airflow to the GPU and to the CPU. With all the cables done except power, we can install the GPU. We're going to be using the top i16 PCIe slot, as any normal, sane computer should. And one thing to consider when screwing in the I/O screws is to make sure that you're able to access your HDMI and DisplayPort connectors. Now, since the GPU's in, there's not much else besides power and the cooler. For the power supply, we're going to pre-install the cables we need to into the PSU. Then on the component end, since we're using white cable extensions to make the build look a lot cleaner, we could plug all those into the components themselves and then route them to the back. Once that's all done and the power supply is installed and a little cable management later, let's install the cooler. As always, a pea-sized drop of knock to a thermal paste and then screw on the cooler. And there you have it. We just built the ultimate 1440p gaming PC. Now that the system is built, how does it perform? In short, amazing. The 4070 Ti delivers incredible performance. As we can see here, for 1440p gaming, we're able to reach excellent frame rates while still maxing out the details. Any game that you throw at this computer will give you excellent performance. And since it's a NVIDIA GPU, you also do have technologies like DLSR and DLSS, as well as Shadowplay to easily record and stream your games. On the CPU side, the 7600X delivers more than enough performance. It may not be hanging with the big dogs for intense multi-core applications, but for someone who's primarily a gamer, that shouldn't be an issue. Overall, every aspect of this system performs great. It's built with brand new parts that are the latest generation, giving you the newest technologies, you have original warranties, and you get the longest support. Since AMD has promised socket support for AM5 up until at least 2025, that means they're releasing new CPUs until then. So, in several years from now, you'll be able to buy a brand new CPU, drop it in, there's your upgrade. Now that brings us back to the original question, is the 4070 Ti worth it? And honestly, I think that answer is no. Don't get me wrong, the 4070 Ti is an excellent card. Its performance from 1080p all the way up to 4K is something that we dreamed of just a few years ago. However, at $800 for a 70 class card, NVIDIA is asking quite a lot from you. Looking at the used last gen models like the 3080 and the 3090, as well as AMD's extremely competitive options, it really brings into perspective who this GPU is for. If you're a die-hard NVIDIA fan and you're looking to build a brand new system with the latest gen parts in a $1,500 to $1,800 budget, then the 4070 Ti is the one for you. If you want the most bang for your buck, the most performance per dollar, then I would say to look at the used GPU market for 3080s, 3090s, and their Ti variants. Or consider buying a last gen or current gen AMD card. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We just built an incredible 1440p gaming PC with the latest parts, quality all around, and let's be honest, it looks pretty good too. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button. I do have a couple more videos coming your way, from new gaming builds to old gaming builds to server builds to restoring old laptops. I'm really excited. And with that, Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.